My name is NAJWA ZEBIAN, and today I'll be talking about authentic influence. People always ask me, how did you get to 1 million followers on Instagram? And that question always takes me back to my beginnings. So in early of 2016, I had, I think, 300 followers on Instagram, and I'm pretty sure they were all friends, family members, acquaintances. And now, with all of my social media combined, we've surpassed a community of 1.5 million people. So when I think back to everything that's allowed me to get to this point, the only answer that comes to me is that I stayed real. I stayed true to that message that I so badly wanted to put out there in the world, which is you can heal through the power of words. And I stuck to it over time. So when I think of social media, especially during this time, I think influence is out there. But what we really need is authentic influence. And authentic influence is moving people through genuinely original means. There are two elements to authentic influence: originality and credibility. Originality is your ability to create something new, something novel, something that no one has created before. That's very important in every aspect, not just social media. With whatever product or message that you're putting out there, you need to be, even if it's not something new, there has to be a new twist to it. There has to be something that makes it unique. And it's the same thing with social media content. Remember, people are scrolling. It's very quick. You either like something or you don't. You see it or you don't. It catches your attention or it doesn't. And what happens when it does catch your attention is you're more likely to react to it. You're more likely to share it with other people. And that's really what creates that engagement. But if there is no originality, that won't happen. The mistake that many fall into is that they look at what someone else is doing and say, that worked for them. If I do it, it's going to work for me as well. But what allowed that to work for them is the fact that they did it in a way that no one before them did it before. So now you are copying them, hoping to get to the same end result. When really what you need to do is create a new way to be seen and to be noticed. Credibility is probably a little bit more important than originality, because credibility is really that place where you build trust with your audience, where you build trust with the people who are looking to you, with your customers. So for example, if I were to put out content that is original, but it's not presented in a way that really shows my care for the people who are viewing it or seeing it or getting access to it, that's going to come across only as I am trying to sell something. But when there is that investment, when there is that true solid base of why you want to put that product or that content out there, of how it's going to help the person who is getting access to it, if you don't have that, then it will just come across as you're trying to sell something, and you will just drown in the sea or in the ocean of content out there. People nowadays, especially with what we're going through right now, are not looking for the next new thing. They're looking for the next real thing. So you have to make sure that the content that you're putting out there is not only original, but that it's also showing that genuine care for your audience. So I've put together a list of 3 steps to ensure that the content that you're creating and putting out there is generating that authentic influence. The first step is distinguish your end goal. Whatever your mission or vision is, whatever your why am I doing what I'm doing? Not what product am I trying to sell? Why am I doing what I'm doing? The more that you reflect on that and say, this is what I want my end goal to be, this is what our end goal is, the more you are able to create content that will serve it. So in education, we always say plan with the end in mind. So for example, if I'm planning a course or a unit, I will say, what do I want my students to get by the end of this course or this unit? What are the 1, 2, or 3 key teachings that I want them to walk away by the end of this course or this unit? And then based on those 1 or 2 or 3, I start creating plans for those 1 or 2 or 3. And I'm going like this because we call this planning with the end in mind, and then we talk about scaffolding. So you're going to see it as a top-down approach. So what is your end goal? And what do you need to do to get to that end goal? So from your start, you're going to start very simple, very small. For example, if I'm planning a unit on the human body, I won't start right away with the human body. I start with the key terms. What's a cell? What's an organ? What's a system? So that when I teach bigger concepts, my students aren't overwhelmed with a bunch of new information. They feel like they have been prepared. And it's the same thing with social media content. If I want to teach people how to let go, I don't start right away by talking in an inspirational tone about what letting go is going to, make your life like. I start with, what is letting go? What are some of the barriers in the way of letting go? What are some of the difficulties that people have with letting go? What is one of my stories on letting go? What do you do? What kind of steps do you take to get to letting go? So you start very small, very simple, not assuming that your audience knows that end goal or that they are at that end goal. You start small and you build. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is that you start planning that content, just as I described, based on what that end goal is. And that content could be, it follows the same kind of scaffolding model that I just explained to you. So once you've planned that content, you are going to look at the reaction that you got to it. You're going to see how your audience engaged with it, and you're going to assess whether it was really authentically influencing your audience. So you're going to look at comments, you're going to look at messages that you receive as a result, you're going to look at any kind of feedback that you can get. Don't get fooled by number of likes and number of follows, because sometimes algorithms will work against you. So you have to make sure that you are taking an unbiased look at that content that you've put out there and the feedback that you've received. So if you see that it didn't really reach that many people and you didn't really get that kind of, you didn't get enough feedback to know, then just remember the algorithm will often pick up content that immediately caught people's attention. So reflect on that and say, what can I do next time? That's why step number 2 and step number 3 are always going in a loop. So once you plan that content and put it out there, then you assess the authenticity of it. You assess based on the feedback that you got. Then you're going to go back and not change the original content that you had out there, but say, what can I do better next time for the next content that I'm putting out there? So you're going to go in that loop, and your end goal is always going to be there, and it's always going to be in mind. As long as it's what's pushing you, as long as it's the reason behind putting out that product or that message, then your end goal is fine. It's just the strategy that you're taking. So these are the 3 steps. I hope that they help. If there are any specific questions, I am more than ready, willing, and happy to answer them. Have a wonderful day.